We want answers on McDaniels' contract. How big of an issue is money? We know you're on the inner workings and at the highest levels.
I get those inner office memos. Please update Josh McDaniels' salary. Yeah, I have no idea.
My concern with the hire is that it's not Vrabel's, it's the Krafts, and money and loyalty, familiarity are the reasons, which to me would kind of be the wrong reasons. Your thoughts?
I will say this. All of that is, I think, fair to wonder, and I have wondered about, less so about the money as I am concerned about what Vrabel actually wants. Now, I can only assume that Vrabel's on board with this because I think he had an opportunity to sort of voice his concerns before he signed and before he was hired. And if he wasn't on board with it, I think he would have had the ability to say so. But I think that's a legitimate concern. If the head coach isn't fully committed to the offensive coordinator, I think you're starting off on the wrong foot. So I have to hope that they're aligned and that he's on board with this. I was intrigued by the idea of maybe a younger voice, maybe a more creative, opportunity to go off of that McVay tree. The Dave Ragones of the world, the Nick Caley's. I heard you guys when I was driving in talking about the Minnesota guys. Josh McCown makes a lot of sense to me. A guy with a relationship with Drake May. That said, I know that Josh McDaniels is a good offensive coordinator because I saw it. I know he knows what he's doing. I know they'll be buttoned up. I think some of the spacing issues, I think, in the passing game last year that we saw a lot of in the last couple of years, really, I think will get cleaned up. I've seen Josh run training camp. You've seen it. Mm-hmm. You've seen Charlie and Josh out there. They're going to be very disciplined with what they're asking the receivers to do. I know it'll be good. I don't know if it'll be great.
As I said earlier, I know it's sad, but it is progress. It's a legit guy, a legit hire, stable, worthy, and that for them right now constitutes progress because it's been such a bleep show for the last several years with bad hires and dysfunctional internal operation, all of this. That just to have a real guy in that spot is a step in the right direction. It's sad to say that, but that I think is definitely the case. What's the best thing you can say about Josh McDaniels?
The best thing I would say, that's a good question. I would probably go with just his ability to work with quarterbacks. I think that obviously, most of the success is Tom Brady. I'm not blind to that. I'm not trying to be sunshine.com for you and just overlook the fact that he had the best quarterback of all time and had tremendous success with him. But I do think he did some good things with Matt Castle. I think he did some good things even with Cam Newton when Cam Newton couldn't throw. I think he found a way to squeeze every ounce of offense out of that group as he could in, to a lesser extent, Mac Jones. I know a lot of people point to that rookie year as something, in my opinion, that it wasn't. My fellow Patriots, analyst, Greg Bedard, comes in. He loves to tweet me. He's like, why do you hate that Mac Jones year so much? Because I think it was a bunch of plastic numbers, and I think Jim did a good job of illustrating those. I think they piled up some big numbers against a couple of really bad teams when overall, week to week, it didn't look as good as the final number indicated to me. But that said, I think he's shown the ability to work with some different quarterbacks. I would even put Jimmy Garoppolo in that space. So I think he's done a good job with other guys. Obviously, he took it to a different level with Brady.
It's not a couple. It's 3 games. And the 3 games in 2021 with Mac Jones that rookie year against the Jets, Browns, and Jaguars. So it's 45 points, and 50. They averaged just under 47 points per game. In the other 14 games, they averaged just about 21. That Mac Jones year is overrated. I'm with Paul.
Yeah, I'm with Murray on this.
Of course, but
I would just
overrated
say that
doesn't mean suck.
Right,
Correct.
exactly. And I would also say that was the best by far that Mac Jones looked. He's been in the league now for 4 years.
By far.
So I give Josh McDaniels credit for that.
Okay, what's your biggest concern with Josh McDaniels?
That he puts a lot on the quarterback. I think from a mental standpoint, he's talked about this specifically, so I don't think I'm talking out of school here. It's not an easy system for quarterbacks. He puts a lot of the protections. They call out.
Oh, so are we back to Drake May calling the mic?
I mean, that would be my guess.
Yeah,
now
right.
Maybe he changes.
Right.
Maybe he goes to a West Coast system. I'm going to assume it's going to be sort of that Earhart-Perkins system that we've seen for 2+ decades.
Gap running, power running versus a zone running.
Yeah, which I'm not necessarily upset with, but to me it's more about the passing game and what they're asking the quarterback and the receivers to do.
Quarterback calling out the mic, quarterback responsible for protections, supposed to say the center, but really on the quarterback. And then with the receiver, It's a lot of sight adjust stuff. It's a lot of I was talking to Gasper about this last night.
Some guys get it and some guys
the
don't.
receiver has to see what the quarterback's seeing.
Yeah, that scares the crap out of me.
It's not just calling a route. If it's
leverage,
inside leverage, you go out, and it sounds simple, but
it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
I don't like that.
And
that's a recipe for freaking disaster with this outfit.
Yeah, no. Jalen Polk and Javon Baker should really pick that up.
But listen, you're going to need different weapons anyway. I mean, I think that whether you keep the offense the same, you need better receivers than you have. So it's not necessarily the individuals. I get your point, Mike, but it's not necessarily the individuals that I worry about picking it up. It's hard for anybody to pick it up. When we've seen it, there's a million examples, especially the latter half of the Brady era, once Brady was at that high level. Now, that's what gives me a little bit of optimism, too, because it's not going to start there. He's obviously, as a quarterback who's going to be in his first year in the system, it's not going to be like, well, I don't know, N'Keal Harry couldn't get on the same page as Tom Brady because Tom Brady had been in the league for 20 years. It's not going to be like that.
Can Drake May pick it up?
Yeah, I think he can. I think he showed a pretty good aptitude last year. Now, maybe it was an easier system and it was more quarterback friendly. This will be more challenging. What I would worry about is the terminology. And this is something, I think I talked to you guys about this, like Brian Hoyer, when I don't know if you know, but I get to do the preseason games with Brian Hoyer. Kind of a big deal. But listening to Brian talk about some of the stuff, he breaks it down and just talks about there's a lot of words in these West Coast plays.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different set of terminology for the traditional Patriot system. And that's what really got Ocho Cinco as an example. Chad Johnson really had a hard time saying the go route was this in this offense, and I'm used to being called this, and I can't figure out what it is in this offense. And some guys get it, some guys don't. I mean, Brandon LaFell had no problems. He came in. Chris Hogan, he had no, guys that have been in other places and came here, picked it up seamlessly. Wes Welker, there's a lot of examples of guys that were adapted easily, and then other guys, it took a little bit more time. So that's what I would worry about is the terminology for Drake May.
The communication thing scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, I think it should. I think you're right about that.
And reading the leverage thing and the two guys making the decision. How did it work between Drake May and Demario Douglas this year? Okay, because how many times did one guy go one way and the ball went the other?
And that's why I say you're going to need different receivers anyway. Ideally, you're going to have at least two guys that are better than anybody you have right now. You got to get somebody, in my opinion, in free agency, and you probably need to draft somebody early.
And it's got to be now we're back to the thing of they got to be a thinking man's ball player too, because there's an extra layer of this, And this I bag on Baker and Polk. I just think they showed so much immaturity.
They did.
You're
not wrong
on the field and off. And if you're immature, are you able to process the thing that this offense is asking you to process? The receivers that were here that I loved were, really sort of solid thinking pros.
Yeah, Deion Branch.
From Troy Brown
David
through Deion
Givens,
Branch and those guys, they had their heads screwed on straight. It's hard to be a knucklehead receiver in that offense. It's too challenging.
So let me give you one more thing that I'm optimistic about because I am sunshine.com. But Josh McDaniels, we had a chance to talk to him. Mike Dussault and I sat with him. We went over a lot of Brady drives. We had this feature that we did in the offseason. But in talking about all that stuff that we did during the course of that day, he talked about a lot of time that he spent in college campuses, in the spring camps, spring football last year. So I'm going back to let's say last March, April. He spent a lot of time at Ohio State, out west, USC. So I think that I can only infer that he's trying to learn some of that terminology, some of those schemes, some of those spread concepts that maybe are getting infiltrated now in the NFL. So maybe he's learning, adapting, and we will have some more creativity and maybe some change to his approach.
All right. We asked before, for some inner working, some details on the money, and because I think it's an important part of the story, given the recent track record of hiring and the staffing choices they've made, which have been poor. And I think a lot of times it's related to the money, and so I think this is very much on the table, more than it's ever been. So I ask you for some details, of course, once again. Perillo not telling us what he knows.
I don't have the money for you, Tom. What? Okay, I don't know what his salary is.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.